Welcome to First Time Watching. 825 Forest Road is Shudder's new movie, made in collaboration with the director of Hell House LLC. It follows Chuck, who hopes to start a new life in Ashland Falls with his wife and sister, but they quickly discover that even their realtor didn't know everything about this town. The movie scored an abysmal 36% on Rotten Tomatoes, but after reading some reviews, I believe that's mainly because Hell House LLC set such a high bar. If I look at 825 Forest Road by itself, it definitely has a refreshing take on the horror genre. So, without further ado, please like and subscribe as we dive straight into the explanation. Ashley is FaceTiming with her friend Natalie. They had plans to search for something tomorrow, but Natalie can't go. She got grounded. Her mom found books about Ashland Falls, and Natalie jokes that she thinks her mom would have preferred to find pot in her room instead. But Ashley has bigger news. She has a theory. She believes they've been looking in the wrong places for the mysterious house. The town borders have shrunk over the years. Suddenly, there's a knock at the door. Ashley calls out for them to come in, but no one enters. Her friend reminds her that her parents were taking her brother to college. She's supposed to be home alone. There's another knock. Ashley opens the door, but no one is there. She looks around the house, and while she doesn't notice, there is clearly somebody lurking in the background. She rushes back to her room and closes the door, only for something or someone to immediately bang on it. Chuck and his wife Maria are getting the grand tour from their realtor Bonnie. The house is much bigger and cheaper than any of the others they've seen so far. It sounds like a huge red flag, but if it is, it's not one Bonnie seems to be aware of. They'll be living there with Chuck's younger sister, Isabelle, who has been staying with them ever since their mother passed away. We begin with Chapter 1, Chuck. Not long after buying the house, Chuck is already back on the phone with Bonnie. There's a leaky roof. The last room to check is Maria's studio. He barges in while Maria is live streaming to her audience. Chuck apologizes after checking for leaks, then jokes about Maria's ugliest mannequin, Martha, saying she looks even worse than the roof right now. Outside, their neighbor, Larry, walks over to formally introduce himself. Chuck tells him about the leaky roof and that he's hoping to get some money from the previous owner, since they told Bonnie it was brand new. But Larry has some bad news. The previous owner killed himself. He wonders why Bonnie never mentioned that. A little later, Chuck is on the phone with Bonnie again about the roof, because this whole suicide thing isn't important enough. But he gets distracted by a photo he took of the buckets catching the water. There's a hunting rifle in the picture that wasn't there in real life. The next morning, Chuck asks Maria to look outside. Martha, the ugly mannequin, is now standing in their driveway. Maria is furious. She thinks Chuck put the hideous thing out there as a joke. Larry, who had been lurking nearby, asks Chuck about the mannequin. When Chuck tells him his sister probably did it as a prank, Larry asks an odd question. How is Isabelle doing mentally? Chuck asks why he wants to know, and Larry explains that Maria told him about their mother's death in the car accident. Apparently, Larry knows more than me at this point of the movie, but pop off king. He adds that the town has a long history of suicide, and people who struggle with depression are particularly vulnerable to her. Isabelle suddenly sneaks up on them, and Larry quickly says goodbye, telling Chuck to keep an eye on her. As Larry walks away, Chuck calls after him. That's all you're going to tell me? Larry replies, but the town has a wonderful library. He should brush up on its history. So Chuck heads to the library. As he walks through the aisles, he notices a random pile of books on the floor that wasn't there before. He hears a girl crying and approaches her. She introduces herself as Ashley and pleads with him not to do it, not to take the books. She says it's all real and he should just leave town. He blissfully ignores her warnings and goes to check out his books. At the checkout desk, the clerk asks if he's looking for Forest Road. She tells him it can't be found. He has no clue what she's talking about. Chuck then tells them about the crying girl and the pile of books. Him mentioning the book pile clearly unsettles the library staff. Earlier, Larry had randomly mentioned something called the Friends of Gardening. While leaving the library, Chuck spots a poster for the Friends of Gardening Club, which he takes note of before heading home. Back at home, Chuck is reading about a trail of disappearances from the 80s, where a number of people went missing. Then the doorbell rings. It's Olivia, Chuck's first new piano student since he moved. They sit down, and it's immediately clear that Olivia knows absolutely nothing about playing the piano. Chuck runs to the kitchen to grab her some water, but suddenly, the clumsy beginner note notes shift into a beautiful piano arrangement. Confused, Chuck turns around, and Olivia is now standing next to him, terrified. She tells him there's a woman sitting at the piano, but when Chuck walks towards the living room, the music stops and there's no one there. Olivia is clearly shaken and just wants to leave. As she's heading out, she makes one thing very clear. She didn't see the woman's face, and she didn't want to. Unsure what the hell is going on with this town and its people, Chuck decides to check out the Friends of Gardening Club. Larry welcomes him and explains that the subject of their meetings isn't something they can talk about openly. He asks Chuck if he's seen her. Chuck still has no idea who he's referring to, but now he needs to know. The group discusses how things have been getting worse again ever since the last suicide. The library books are starting to appear again, and they fear the worst. The club leader introduces Chuck to the group, explaining that everyone there has been affected by her in some way. They've either lost someone to suicide or have been seeing her everywhere. For some, she's even haunting their dreams. But Chuck is done with all the vagueness. He demands to know who she is. The group leader takes a deep breath and tells him her name is Helen Foster. She has been tormenting this town for decades. She's the reason these meetings are kept secret, because the townspeople discourage even speaking about her. The group believes she can be stopped, but only by finding Forest Road, 825 Forest Road. It's said to be where Helen lived back in the 40s, before she killed herself. As the group begins arguing about the location of Forest Road, Larry gets distracted. He stands and walks toward a staircase. Upstairs, he sees Helen moving. He signals the group leader. It's time to end the meeting. Now, the last thing discussed before they leave is a theory. One member believes the house lies outside the current town borders because the boundaries have changed over the years. As Chuck exits, he glances into the church toward the pews. She's there, sitting, watching them. Chapter 2. Isabelle. We return to the day Bonnie showed them the house. Isabelle walks upstairs to check out her room. As she switches on the light, Helen is already standing in the corner. But when Isabelle turns around, she's gone. Later, after they'd moved in, Isabelle begins to question whether moving in with Chuck and Maria was a good idea. They're both very busy, and lately, she's been having dreams about their mother. Chuck, worried about her, stops by her room to check in. He finds a drawing of a house and asks when she drew it, because it looks a lot like the one they'd just moved into, but Isabelle honestly doesn't remember. She says it's from a few years ago. He also finds another drawing of a girl standing in front of a door with a strange hand resting on her shoulder, but Isabelle doesn't recall much about that one either. It's clear their relationship is strained. Chuck tries to lighten the mood and asks if she wants to help unpack the kitchen. Maybe it'll help take her mind off things, like their mom dying in the car crash and stuff. She laughs and reminds Chuck how their mom used to stack dishes into little pyramids, then leave a note saying they won't put themselves away. The next morning is when the ugly mannequin, Martha, suddenly appeared outside. As Isabelle walks into the hallway, she notices scratch marks on her bedroom door. She heads outside and finds Chuck talking to Larry. She overhears them discussing her. Chuck is angry. He thinks Isabelle put Martha outside as a prank. That night, Isabelle is practicing piano when Chuck walks in after his Friends of Gardening Club meeting and joins her. She asks where he's been. Maria is out of town, and he hasn't answered his phone all night. Chuck casually says he went for a drink with Larry. Isabelle tells him things have felt off ever since they moved in. There's this girl at her school, Ashley. Last night, she killed herself. There are things happening that Isabelle doesn't know how to explain. She has a friend at school, Luke, who mentioned that this town has an effect on people. Chuck asks if Isabelle has ever had suicidal thoughts. She tells him she blames herself for their mom's death. So what do you think? She then calls him out for disappearing from her life. He left her and their mom and never looked back. It wasn't until their mom died that his wife even found out he had a sister. The next day, the doorbell rings. It's Luke. Isabelle brings him upstairs to her room. He's impressed by her art, but he's even more interested in whether she's seen something, because in this town, people who ask questions usually have. She asks him about the Friends of Gardening, and he tells her it's a club that talks openly about the town being haunted. He asks if she's heard about the library, how a man hanged himself there years ago using a stack of books to reach the rope. The creepy part, that same stack of books keeps reappearing. The library has gotten rid of them multiple times, but they always show up again in the same aisle where the man died. Maria knocks on the door to ask if Isabelle was just in her studio. She seems nervous, but when Isabelle tells her she wasn't, Maria quickly leaves them alone. Luke goes on to explain that all the deaths are believed to be connected to one woman, Helen Foster. Her daughter was bullied at school, and despite Helen's many attempts to stop it, the bullying never never ended until her daughter eventually took her own life. Helen spiraled out of control, ultimately killing the bully and the bully's parents. Then she turned a shotgun on herself. She used to live at 825 Forest Road, a place that no longer exists on any modern map. Many have tried to find the house, but no one has ever succeeded. The only maps from that era are sealed under a court order made back in the 50s. In the 80s, there was an attempt to unseal the files, but several people died that day, and no one's dared try again since. That night, Maria and Isabelle decide to bond and visit an art gallery together. Isabelle is a bit skeptical, thinking Chuck might have arranged it, but Maria assures her it was her own idea. She tells Isabelle that Chuck is the kind of guy who wants to fix things, even when he doesn't fully understand what he's trying to fix. Maria then opens up. She's bipolar. She's medicated, so the episodes are rare, but it's not something she can talk to Chuck about. He just doesn't get it. Behind them, there is a loud gasp, and people begin to leave. The gallery owners announce they're closing the exhibit immediately. When Isabelle looks at the paintings behind her, she sees a dark entity has appeared in one of them, and it's slowly getting closer. The owners quickly cover the painting with a blanket to hide it from the public. That night, while Isabelle is sleeping, the light in her closet suddenly turns on. She gets up to switch it off, but it turns on again. She switches it off once more and even removes the bulb before going back to bed, but the light turns on again. Now she's freaking out. Fingers appear around the edge of the closet door, and someone begins peeking at her. That's when she jolts awake. She looks at the closet door, it's closed, but when she glances at her nightstand, the light bulb is sitting right there. Isabelle tells Luke things are getting worse. She might have to leave town. She asks if he can help her find Forest Road. She wants the hauntings to stop, but more than that, she feels guilty about leaving Chuck behind in this town. After all, that's what he did to her when they were younger. Luke shuts her down immediately. Hell no, he says. He believes Ashley may have found Forest Road, and that's why she ended her life. He's not taking any chances. Then Isabelle gets a call from Chuck. He sounds distressed and asks her to please come back home. He needs her to look after Maria. When Isabelle gets home, Maria is crying, and Chuck is heading out. She asks if he's going to look for Helen Foster's house. He doesn't answer, just leaves. Luke has followed her home like a little lost puppy and finds Isabelle packing. She's decided to leave town the next day and move into her college dorm. She tells Luke that Chuck and Maria will also be leaving town in a few days. Maria likely had a bipolar episode because of all this Helen Foster stuff. But Chuck's stalling. He still thinks he might be able to find Forest Road. Luke says that's actually why he came over. Then he picks up one of Isabelle's photos and says, "Oh, I met your mom. She looks a little different here." Isabelle is confused. "What did you just say?" Luke repeats himself. "Your mom. She's a nice woman. She let me into the house." Isabelle stares at him. "That's not funny. My mom's dead." Now they're both freaking out. Isabelle demands to know exactly what happened. Luke tells her he knocked on the door, and her mom answered. She told him Isabelle was upstairs and that she'd check on her later. Suddenly, the sound of glass shattering comes from downstairs. Isabelle and Luke rush down, but Luke panics. As the whiny little chicken shit he is, he gets the hell out of there. A sing-songy voice echoes through the house. "Isabelle, Isabelle, it's Mommy," followed by maniacal laughter. Isabelle finds Maria, terrified and sobbing in the living room. Maria tries to keep her from going into the kitchen, but Isabelle pushes past. She has to see for herself. She walks toward the kitchen and hears Helen mumbling. As she goes around the corner, Helen is already there, waiting to scare her. Both Isabelle and Maria scream and run upstairs. Maria dashes into her studio, while Isabelle retreats to her room at the end of the hallway. She hides behind her bed, trembling, as Maria's screams echo from down the hall. Chapter 3. Maria. Back to the day Bonnie showed them the house. Maria makes a joke about dead bodies in the basement, but Bonnie assures them there's no record of any horrible deeds ever committed there. After they move in on the day Chuck is at the library, Maria is outside in the parking lot, making some work calls as she waits. When Chuck returns with some books, they talk about Isabelle. Chuck doesn't understand why she can't get over their mom's death, but Maria lays into him because she can definitely understand how Isabelle feels. Isabelle was the one driving the car, for Christ's sake. No wonder she feels guilty. Upstairs, Maria is getting ready while talking on the phone with her sister Allie. Allie's going on about how Maria's a city girl and doesn't understand why they moved blah blah. After they hang up, Maria's watch alarm goes off. Time for her medication. She walks downstairs. Helen is watching her through a mirror. Downstairs, Maria asks Chuck if he found anything interesting interesting about the town. He tells her everything seemed normal until somewhere in the 50s when the town suddenly changed all the street names and redrew its borders. He also mentions that their address used to be 15 Rose Lane. Maria loves that, but when she walks into the kitchen, she finds a perfectly stacked pyramid of dishes on the counter. On top of it is a note that reads, "They won't put themselves away." She thinks it's some kind of sick joke and is honestly a little offended, feels like someone was just too lazy to put the dishes away and thought it would be funny. Later, as she heads out in the car, a news report comes on about Ashley's suicide. As she drives off, Helen is standing in the driveway, waving goodbye. On the day Luke came over for the first time, Maria is live streaming for her vlog, Threading the Needle. She's walking through the house with her laptop, showing her followers the new fabrics she's picked up, especially for her sister Allie's wedding. She's going to make the bridesmaids' dresses herself. But when she returns to her studio, Ugly Martha, the mannequin, has moved. She walks to Isabelle's room to ask if she was in the studio. Isabelle tells her no, so Maria shrugs it off, returns to her vlog, and tries to move on. Still, even after she's done, she can't stop staring at creepy Martha. But then her watch alarm goes off. It's time for her meds. But this time, she decides not to take them. At night, after Isabelle and Maria return from the gallery, Isabelle rushes upstairs, while Maria stays behind and tries to explain to Chuck what happened. He worries about his sister, and this whole closing the gallery story sounds fishy. On the night when everything really went to shit, Maria is sitting down to start live streaming for her vlog. As she rambles on about making sweaters, Martha, the ugly mannequin, moves her hand in the background. Her sister starts calling. So Maria explains to the vlog that her sister is a regular watcher and she doesn't understand why she'd call while she's live. She ignores the call and tells her to wait until the end. But the doll keeps moving. Her sister calls again. Maria picks up the laptop and walks into the bedroom while she ignores her sister's calls. As she leaves, Martha looks directly into the camera. Her phone keeps blowing up, so she returns to the studio. But Martha is now gone from the room. This time, it's text messages from one of her viewers telling her to get out of the house right now. Still, Maria doesn't get the hint, but then she notices that Martha is missing. A loud bang echoes through the house. Maria rushes into the hallway and into Isabelle's room, only to find Martha standing there. The doll turns around and charges at her, but Maria slams the door in its face. Chuck hears the noise, and now they're burning Martha outside. They wait together for Isabelle to get home. Chuck is performing some high-level gaslighting. 1,000 people saw what happened, but somehow he still manages to suggest Maria imagined it all. He tells her they can leave tomorrow. Just one more thing he needs to do first. The selfish prick. Isabelle arrives and makes her Helen Foster comment to Chuck before he leaves. Then we skip ahead to when Luke has already arrived. Maria hears them talking upstairs. She walks into the kitchen and finds another one of those dish pyramids. But this time, the note reads, "Hello, Maria." As she leaves the kitchen, Helen starts roaming around, breaking dishes and calling out for Isabelle in a sing-song voice. She doesn't just taunt Isabelle. She also says, "I know you're there, Maria." That's when Isabelle comes downstairs. Maria tries to stop her from going into the kitchen, but Isabelle doesn't listen. After Helen jump scares her, both of them run upstairs. Maria hides in her studio, while Isabelle runs to her room. Maria manages to close the door, but it slams open. She crawls around her bed, but Helen enters the room, skittering at her at a high speed. In Isabelle's room, the door bursts open, and Maria runs in. She asks Isabelle if she's hurt. They both seem okay until Isabelle looks at Maria. She's bleeding and looks close to death. Chapter 4. Forest Road. Chuck is back home, sitting at his wife's bedside, when the doorbell rings. It's Luke. He did it. He stole the old town maps from the county office. He tells Chuck and Isabelle that Ashley found Forest Road. She didn't follow the streets or trails. Instead, she followed the power grid, which led her to an uninhabited area outside of town. They examine the maps and discover a single power line that cuts into the woods, then abruptly stops. The doorbell rings again. This time, it's Bonnie and a cameraman. She's here for the video shoot. They promised to help promote her real estate office. Chuck tries to get rid of her, but suddenly, Maria appears at the top of the stairs looking much better. She tells Bonnie she'll do the shoot. Chuck is shocked, but Maria reassures him. She says he should go find Forest Road. She'll be fine. Isabelle turns to Luke and asks him to stay with Maria until they return. While Chuck and Isabelle drive toward the secluded stretch of forest, Bonnie and her cameraman begin setting up, eager to make some money. But Maria seems off. She keeps staring at Luke, following him around the room. Bonnie asks for her name. Maria answers, "My name is Maria." Bonnie asks for her last name. Maria repeats, "My name is Maria." Meanwhile, Meanwhile, Chuck and Isabelle arrive at the trail leading to what should be the house. Chuck plans to burn it to the ground. Back at the house, Bonnie asks Maria how she found out about her realty office. Maria responds, "The first time I knew something was wrong was when my daughter came home from school crying." Bonnie looks confused. Maria continues, "After the crying came the blood. I saw drops in the bathroom sink." Deep in the forest, Chuck and Isabelle finally find the house. They break in, searching for anything that could confirm it was Helen's home. During the interview, Maria says she had to do something. She had to make them understand what they were allowing to happen. At first, she tried to be civil with the Clark family. She didn't want to hurt anyone. She wrote letters detailing the abuse her daughter was suffering. That should have been enough, but it only got worse. The school promised to help, but they never did. She went to the town council, but they wouldn't even see her. Isabelle goes upstairs in the dark house, and someone is lurking behind her. Maria says she wrote so many letters, but no one responded. She even showed up at their house, but still, nothing changed. Her nose starts to bleed. The camera feed begins to distort. Chuck finds a loose floorboard. Inside is a box of letters, one of them from Helen to the Clark family. Then the realization hits. It wasn't Helen who lived at 825 Forest Road. It was the Clarks. Helen's real address was 15 Rose Lane, the address where Chuck and his family live now. He races upstairs to get Isabelle. They have to leave, but he's too late. She's standing in front of a slightly open door, just like the girl in her drawing. Luke tries to bring Maria back to reality, but she starts repeating Helen's story. He asks her, "Who's your daughter?" Maria answers, "Mary. She's dead." Then she releases a high-pitched scream and transforms into Helen. Luke runs as she kills Bonnie and the cameraman. He tries to escape the house, but the doors won't open. The piano begins to play as Helen catches up to him. Chuck tries to reach Isabelle, but she's crying. She apologizes to him. "I saw this moment. I drew it." A hand appears on her shoulder. Chuck rushes toward her, trying to save his sister, but the ghost is stronger, and it pulls both of them into the room. Now that's a wrap. I know this movie wasn't for everyone, but for me, the ending is what made it great. Most movies end either happily or with a happy moment overshadowed by some looming danger. This one wasn't open to interpretation. We know exactly what happened, and everyone dies. It feels like the kind of ending we'd actually get if something like this really existed, and I appreciate how the story moved us through all the possible points of view, so I would definitely recommend more people to watch 825 Forest Road.